guys, it's Carrie. Forgive the weird lighting in this video. It's raining, but it's simultaneously really bright outside, but you don't really need to see me. You can put me in the background for this video. I'm going to be talking about books again. I got a few questions asking about recommendations specifically for kind of quarantine, staying inside, social distancing. I have created a list of 10 books that really either sucked me in and kind of made me completely lose a day. We're all looking for ways to pass the time, or they really helped me find a lot of peace, or they kind of helped me mentally. And so I hope that of the 10, there is at least one that piques your interest or that you haven't read yet. And if not, I made a blog post where I included 10 more. So hopefully within the 20 titles, something catches your eye. But let's just jump into it right now. Let's go. So first up is the Book of Joy by Douglas Abrams, and it is basically his experience following the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu around for, I think it was a week. The Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu are really close friends, but they never get to see each other because they're super duper busy. They were able to set aside, like I said, I think a week to just be together and talk about a lot of different philosophical things, but mainly focusing on joy and happiness. I really like how Douglas Abrams writes this because he's just completely in awe of the fact that he's even there. And you kind of feel that, and I would be too. So it just, overall, it was like a really humbling book. I'm not really one for self-help books. This really wasn't a self-help book. It was more like, I don't know, a interesting and friendly philosophical discussion. And both of these guys are just so cute and funny. So it's just, it fills you with a lot of good feelings. So definitely, if you're looking for something to kind of help you out, especially in these times, the Book of Joy is a great one. Jumping into historical fiction, one of my favorite genres. I don't have the physical copy of this one. I should. Okay, well, I'll search for that afterwards, but I'm talking about Black Flower by Youngha Kim, who is one of my favorite Korean authors. I made a video about Korean authors you can check out up above. Black Flower talks about such a really interesting period of history that not a lot of people know about, and even Youngha Kim didn't know about it. And then when he found out about it, he was like, I gotta write a book about this. In the early 1900s, when Japan had colonized Korea, obviously a lot of people were suffering and they were looking for better lives, and some of them, thousands of Koreans, went to Mexico. It was kind of like the American dream. They were promised land and work and food and happiness, everything that they wanted basically. And so, like I said, thousands of these people went over to Mexico. They got on ships, they left everything behind. And when they arrived, they realized that they had sold themselves into indentured servitude. So all of these people who came over for this, dream of a better life are now in these really bad living conditions, having to work on these plantations. And like I said, I'd never heard about this part of history before. It's not the most exciting novel, but if you are interested in learning about history and you're looking for a new book, this was really well written and just, like I said, so interesting. So Black Flower by Youngha Kim. And it wouldn't be a book video with me without mentioning a murder mystery or a thriller, and those are the genres that really pass the time quickly for me. So anything by Tana French, anything by Agatha Christie, go pick it up. But the book I want to recommend today is Murder on Black Swan Lane, and I think I've talked about it before, but it's kind of similar to Sherlock Holmes. But if you've ever seen the TV show Elementary, where Dr. Watson is played by like an incredibly smart badass woman, Lucy Liu, it's kind of like that, because our two main characters, one is a very rich aristocrat who's also kind of a genius, really into science and stuff like that. And then we have our other main character, who is a woman that pretends to be her husband, I guess, so that she can get a lot more jobs. And she is an incredible artist, and she's a cartoonist for the newspaper. And this takes place in kind of Victorian London. And so obviously there is a murder, and someone is being framed for this murder, and somehow or another these two people team up to solve it, and it involves like alchemy and secret societies in Victorian London. It wasn't necessarily good enough for me to like immediately dive in and read the sequel, but I'm considering it actually. I'm kind of in a reading rut right now, so maybe that is what I'll go read. But definitely if you're interested, especially in like a Victorian London setting, it's just definitely go pick up Murder on Black Swan Lane. So for the next book, I'm not exactly sure what genre it is. It is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova, which I hope a lot of you have read. How do I explain this? I think we're in Amsterdam is where we start off. We kind of see everything through the eyes of our narrator. Her mother has disappeared. We assume that she has passed away. It's very unclear, but we know that somehow her life, like her father and her mother, are really closely tied to Dracula, or the real life person that Dracula was based off of. And so the book ends up being this adventure kind of all across Europe, where it's kind of supernatural, but it's kind of based in history. I really am not explaining this well, but if you're interested in European history, train travel, Dracula, definitely go hit it up. It's a great book. I just really can't explain it well. Yeah, if you're interested in any of those things that I just mentioned, check out The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. It's kind of a long read. I can't really read it in one sitting, but it definitely will take up a few days of your time. And since we're on the topic of vampires, we might as well go into magic, and I'm going to recommend the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. She has a ton of books out, so if you liked one of them, if you happen to read Shades of Magic but you haven't read her Villains series yet or anything, just go read anything you can by V.E. Schwab. But the Shades of Magic trilogy takes place in London, but it's not really the London that we know. There are kind of three dimensions, I suppose you would say. There is Red London, White London, and Black London, and those Londons used to be connected, but there was this issue, so now they're completely separated. Only very few people can travel between the worlds. They each have various levels of magic. It's just this really great adventure, and I absolutely love the series, but every time that I put the books on hold, I always get the third one before the second one, just because like how things work, and it drives me crazy. So I haven't read the series in order in a long time, but yeah, if you're interested in a fantasy novel and you haven't read anything by V.E. Schwab yet, now is your time to change that, because her writing is superb. I have the physical copies for this one. The next books that I want to recommend are the Moth Presents story collections, and I didn't know what the Moth was, but it's basically a community, secret society sort of, held all over the world, and the people who run it will create a theme, and then they will ask a lot of people, a lot of different speakers, to come and share their story. They're given the floor for like 20 minutes to just tell a story, like something real that happened to them. And I don't think anybody is allowed to record it. Like, it's supposed to be just a very in the moment, you're learning about this person's life kind of feeling. People who run the organization do actually record them for records, I guess, and a few of them have been written down into these collections. So I have All These Wonders and Occasional Magic. I actually haven't finished Occasional Magic. I try to like pace myself so that I can constantly go back to it. All These Wonders are true stories about facing the unknown is the theme. And these stories can be anywhere from like 6 pages to like 1.5 pages. They're very, very short. The wave of emotions I can feel through reading this book is absolutely insane. And I think that it just completely restores your faith in humanity. I don't know, it's like a very grounding book. It sounds stupid to say, but it's like, it reminds you that everyone has a life, that everyone is living this very complex life that you can't even fathom. The things that happen in these books, sometimes it's hilarious and I'm laughing out loud, sometimes I'm sobbing. It's just, if you are feeling really disconnected from the world and you need some faith and humanity restored, absolutely get your hands on these books. The Moth presents. Like I said, they're very, very short, so even if you just want to read these like while you're making your coffee, I mean, one story probably takes you like 5 minutes max to read. So yes, highly, highly recommend. Thank you, Mom. These were Christmas presents, so thank you. And I'm actually heading back to London for my next book, and I put this on hold without really understanding what it was, and I started reading it and it went a direction I did not expect, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. And it is the Rivers of London series. I have only read the first book and it's called Midnight Riot, and it essentially follows one police officer in London who is part of a murder investigation, but I won't get into it, but it's weird. Like the way that the murder happened is something's off, which is already weird enough, but his main witness is a ghost that just pops out of the wall. It just gets weirder from there, and it's so funny. It's actually, even though it's kind of like a fantasy, there are like demons and magic and goddesses of the river and stuff like that. It's so adult. Like, he wrote this for adults that like to read fantasy, so there's like really dirty jokes. It was just such a refreshing read because I had never read a book like that before. Middle-aged men dealing with ghosts and magic and stuff. It was just so interesting and such a surprise, like a lovely surprise. And like I said, it was laugh out loud funny. It lost me a little bit when it started going into there's like a river goddess, there's lots of river goddesses, and it kind of got a little fuzzy there, but it was still such an enjoyable read. I just highly recommend The Rivers of London by Aaronovitch. Number 7, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm going to link it up above, but I am recommending Six of Crows. You guys are probably so sick of me, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I made an entire video about Leigh Bardugo and all of her work, so I'm not gonna say anything else. Go watch that, Six of Crows. Read it. Read it. Number 8 is another historical fiction that I actually listed on my list of favorite books that I made like 2 years ago. It is The Alienist by Carr. And yes, it was made into a Netflix series, but I actually liked the book a lot more. So it takes place kind of at the end of the 1800s in New York City, and there are suddenly all of these killings which make people believe that there is a serial killer. And this is really the first time in history that people are actually caring about mental health, or people are researching mental health. So the chief of police calls this doctor who has helped them before, I believe, to just kind of like look at this and be like, what the hell? Like, can you tell us what we're dealing with here with this serial killer, please? And it just is such an interesting book because the people who are being killed are immigrants that are also sex workers. And so nobody really cares about the victims getting any public support. Even the police officers are not that excited about helping. It's just such an interesting time in history. And so if you're interested in like crime, history, psychology, The Alienist is such a good book, and it's pretty long, so it will definitely take up a lot of your time. And then after that, I would recommend watching the Netflix series because it's pretty okay. I did a pretty good job. But yes, The Alienist by Carr. And last but not least, I'm going to leave you with a thriller, and it is The Girl on the Train, A Girl on the Train, which I'm sure you've already heard about. It was made into a movie, but I never saw it. I ate this up. I read this book in like maybe 2 hours, I think. I probably got it at like an airport bookstore, and I just like loved it because it's something you can totally relate to. It's all about voyeurism, and especially now when we're very separated from other people, I'm finding myself like sitting by my window a lot and like looking at people. And that's kind of what this book is about. It's about this girl who goes to work every day on the same train as most of us do when we commute, and part of her train ride passes by these houses, and she looks in, as one does, and she kind of like gets to know this couple that lives in this house, and once there's like a break in their routine, she feels really weird about it. And even though she knows nothing about them, she literally only sees them in passing on this train, she decides to like make sure everything's okay. And it just takes so many turns, but I think that we're all guilty of that, like seeing something and making up this crazy story, either because like we're bored, I don't know what it is. I just thought it was really interesting, and it kept my attention. I was captivated from start to finish. So definitely, if you want to just like waste an entire day sitting on your couch and reading this, A Girl on the Train. And so I am losing my voice, so I'm going to stop here with those 10 recommendations. But I also just want to remind you that books that you loved as a kid are not off limits. Even though you're probably older now, books that you really liked when you were younger are still legitimate reading material. So for example, there's this book that I loved as a kid called The Thief Lord, which takes place in Venice, and it's just fabulous. Anything by Cornelia Funke, I think. Even though I read that probably, oh God, like 15 years ago by now at this point, it's still, I read it like the last time I was ever home. I got it off of my bookshelf and I read it, and it was still great. So if you have some books on your bookshelf that brought you a lot of joy when you were a kid, there's no shame in going and reading those again, regardless of how much older and wiser we are now, I suppose. So yeah, I just want to kind of throw that out there as well. But definitely check my blog post. I have a few more recommendations, and I hope that any of those were helpful. And as always, please leave your recommendations in the comments. You guys have turned me on to so many amazing books, so your comments are absolutely treasured. So yeah, I'm going to go now. I'm gonna go drink some tea, and the sun is out, the sky is blue. Look at that, the rain stopped. So excellent. I will catch you guys later, and thank you as always for watching. Bye.